U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has announced new sanctions against a Russian media channel. The top U.S. diplomat explained that the media is part of a network of Russian-backed media outlets which have sought to covertly undermine democracy in the United States.
The United States respects and champions freedom of expression, even when it comes to media outlets that wittingly spread government propaganda, and will continue to lead the world in defending and promoting media freedom. But we will not stand by as RT and other actors carry out covert activities in support of Russia's nefarious activities.
Meanwhile, fighting is still on between Russia and Ukraine, with officers from the Ukrainian military reporting that the situation is critical near the front line south of Pokrovsk. We have more in this report.
The Russian military has reported of being surrounded by Russia. This comes as Russia's military strategy now appears to be surrounding the south of Pokrovsk, which is a key transportation hub in the region. One of the Ukrainian officers, who preferred to stay anonymous, said the military leadership wants to hold their positions at all costs, often leading to the loss of troops and resources. Reports say the situation in Pokrovsk is becoming increasingly difficult as the Russians have destroyed the crossing that connected the city with Minorad, leaving the locals without water and gas. More and more people are trying to evacuate from Pokrovsk, but trains are no longer returning from there, and the bus station is also closed. Therefore, those who do not have their own transport are looking for benefactors who would help with departure. Another report revealed that the Russians are bombarding Orkiv and the surrounding area with aerial bombs and long-range artillery every day. At the same time, in the fields to the south, the occupiers keep trying to push through the Ukrainian defense line. In order to deter the enemy and support Ukrainian infantrymen, long-range weapons of the 44th Separate Artillery Brigade are on guard around the clock on the Tomak section of the front. In another development, Odessa has been affected after being massively attacked by drones at night. Air defense forces worked in the city for almost an hour. Most of the drones were destroyed, but there were also hits and damage from debris. A dozen cars and houses were damaged by the explosion, and one person was injured. Those who experienced the night terror say the Russians specifically aimed the drones at the residential sector because there are no military or energy facilities nearby.
I have joined me Global Affairs analyst Ejike Okpa, and chairman. He joins me from the US. Also, we have the chairman Nigerians in Diaspora, Russia, Dr. Godwin Ibe. They'll both be speaking on the continuous Russia-Ukraine war. Thank you both for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
So let me start with you, Mr. Ejike Okpa. What's your thoughts on the statement coming from the U.S. Secretary of State saying that, look, the U.S. is beginning to consider allowing Ukraine to use longer-range weapons in this war?
I don't know. I mean, it could just be an empty statement that's just not going to be followed up with. Because if they were to do that, then this war is going to escalate to a level that maybe nobody would going to like the outcome. Russia is doing what Russia is doing because Russia knows that if Ukraine were to use an American missile that America was hoping to be a deterrent and actually fire it into Russia, then who knows what Putin is going to do. Attack some other NATO countries around Russia, and now all of a sudden you have a major war going on. So I think it's just one of those statements that he's making. But then we're watching, this war is now 2.5 years old. And when it started, everybody thought it was going to be over in a matter of months. And who knows how long it's going to go before it actually stops. So I don't put any weight on what Biden administration people are saying. The president is just watching and marking his time to be out of there come January, regardless of who wins in November. So, and nobody's taking him seriously. He's been a weak president during this time, and then that was even what enabled and emboldened Putin to do what Putin has done.
And I'm staying with you, Mr. Ejike Okpa. How valid is a statement coming from the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, that if the US and NATO countries were to allow that to happen, the use of long-range weapons by Ukraine, then it would mean that Russia is at war with NATO and Russia would have to change its strategy?
Well, that's what I said earlier. If UK Prime Minister was there, I think recently, meeting with Biden, and everybody is just kind of cautious because Russia is one of those countries in the world that has some weaponry system that they can deploy, and it could be an immediate unleashing of missiles and bombs and whatever around vulnerable countries that shouldn't even be drawn into this war. So, it's a cautious statement. It's a cautious situation, and I don't think anything is going to happen in the next few months. I think they're just watching this election to see what happens come November and then who takes over in January.
Let me bring in Dr. Ibe now, who is in Russia. Dr. Ibe, I also want to get your reaction, to the statement coming from both the U.S. Secretary of State and then the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
Well, you see, it's horrible that instead of de-escalation, we are seeing such rhetorics that could lead to escalation. President Putin has been quite clear in the sense that and has drawn a red line, or do I say new red line, that if those long-range weapons are to be used, then those satellites in space that coordinate, that help in the target acquisition and location will be destroyed. That could mean so many things. It could also mean unleashing nuclear bomb or explosion in space, because it will be seen by Russia as direct involvement of NATO in the conflict. Everyone knows that Russia has the capability, but the question is why the bear? This war has lasted, do I say longer than most people predict, but it has also led to the loss of lives approaching millions. This does not reduce in any way from the fact that there are other wars going on in other theaters around the world. In Syria, it hasn't stopped. Oh no. In Sudan, in Libya, in so many areas around the world still have wars, and these are human lives that are being lost on a daily basis. The first peace summit that was held by Ukraine and its Hallelujah Boys, that did not include Russia. And one will wonder, why would you have a peace summit between two, warring partners, and you wouldn't have one of them seated at the table? But fortunately, we are hearing statements that the second peace summit might include Russia, and it's very good if both parties can come along and negotiate. Because, well,
Dr. Ibe, if I may quickly comment, because
every day.
You made a statement that I want to follow through with or follow up on. It's when you said everyone knows that Russia has its capabilities. Russia has, struggled in this war with Ukraine. Russia actually thought that it was going to defeat Ukraine in a matter of months or weeks. But, this is now a war of attrition. Is Russia ready for conflict with NATO?
There are some statements you may not consider misconceptions. First of all, there is no time and no place did Russia say that they were going to win the war in a matter of days. These are one-sided predictions which didn't turn out, and that responsibility should not be placed on Russia. That's the first of all. Now, about struggling, you've made a one-sided remark saying Russia is struggling, but is NATO winning? So why wouldn't you say NATO is also struggling? Maybe you could say both sides are struggling. Since it has lasted this long, then it would be a balanced statement. So if both sides are struggling, then it begs the question, why not meet on the negotiation table and try to end it, because it has cost, huge cost. So it will not be, such statement will not bring the other party to, if you say only one side is struggling. Rather, you accept the realities of what's going on, that both sides are suffering losses, and both sides need to come to negotiation table and end this. Obviously, it's Ukrainian lands mostly that are taken. Now we have this Kursk offensive, which has led to more loss of lives, especially of the Ukrainians. They are kind of retreating from Kursk. But it's mostly former Ukrainian lands that are taken and now part of Russian territory, which are, which is the main victim in this conflict. That's where the combat line is, most of the combat line. So I think we have to take it from a balanced view of things and listen more. I've heard so many statements from West, whether not only Secretary of State, other Western leaders, but I don't see many from Russian leaders. Russian leaders, some of them speak English. And even if they don't, they have translators. So it would be nice to also get their own statements, their own versions, so that when you get two Russian and Western leaders speak, you match it up with two Russian leaders.
We actually do listen to reports coming from Russia as well. But in terms of capabilities, Ukraine is no match for Russia, and that's why it's called a struggle on the side of Russia. When you look at military capabilities, but but
it's not Ukraine that is fighting. Ukraine is supplied and sponsored by the West.
Just a minute. I need to move to. My final question has to go to Mr. Ejike Okpa. Dr. Ibe has talked about negotiations and finding lasting peace, which a lot of people actually, we have more people who are in support of peace, and finding, just that mediation point. What will it take to bring this war to an end? And is it even close? Is it in sight at all?
Yeah, I wish I'm clairvoyant. I wish I'm a Russian, or I wish I'm a Ukrainian. I am somebody who is opposed to, European conflicts becoming a world war, and this is neighbors, hitting on neighbors. I really don't care if they were to bomb all themselves out of life, because in history, you look at all the major conflicts in the world, it has always been an European war. The first one, the second one, and now, we are teetering at the edge of something else happening. Yes, it makes sense for the two warlords in this to get together and look themselves in the eye and say, hey, what do we need to do to have this thing end? People are dying, properties have been destroyed, and they're not, even when this thing ends, you still have to have the aftermath of it. That's psychological damage. People who have lost loved one because they are encouraged by their leaders who live in bunkers to put on a uniform, and then at the end of it, the day they give you a medal and call you a hero. The hero of life should be one who is able to live freely and be able to take care of their family. I don't have to fight unnecessary wars because a president or two presidents don't like each other. Yes, Ibe is right. It is the war is, I've always said this on interviews you guys have given me, is one versus many. Maybe Putin is crazy and, every president in the world is crazy, but the fact that he has been able to withstand this, incursion from NATO, from the West, from everybody, maybe what he's doing is reserving his most dangerous weapon until NATO people fire at him, then he will unleash his own arms. So again, this is neighborly love. If love thy neighbor is what they say in the Bible for those people who read it and believe in it. How come these Russian and Ukrainians are not loving each other? Why should I be bothered? Why should Africa be bothered in all this stuff? Africa has its own conflict. Africa has its own challenges. But is that drawing the attention that this Ukraine and Russia thing is drawing? It's not. So, I think, Africa should come to the point and say, I don't care. We don't care. If you guys want to slaughter yourselves,
it would be a very strong statement to say we don't care, because, in every conflict, lives are lost, whether in Africa or around the world. But we do have to live with that.
Nobody's talking about you. Ibe said it. Who's talking about this?
But we do have to live with that. I have just a few seconds left. Thank you so much for your time. Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okpa, thank you. And Chairman, Nigerians in Diaspora, Russia, Dr. Godwin Ibe. Always a pleasure to have both of you on.
Thank you.